It's a civic responsibility you may get called to do in your lifetime, but what actually happens if you're selected for jury duty? Well, our very own Nick Westall is here to tell us all about that. Nick, thanks so much for being with us. You recently served on a jury and, working in media, I've went to cover cases and trials, but I don't know too much what happens behind closed doors, but you got the opportunity because you were selected. So tell us a little bit about that selection process.
Yeah, and I'm in the same boat as you. Like, I've gone to court a few different times, and obviously you have this preconceived idea of what happens just based on your own experience. So in late 2024, I got a notification in the mail. It said, fill out this survey, we might be considering you as a juror. I thought nothing of it. I replied. I said, hey, I'm a journalist. I thought right then, they are going to want me. And then, lo and behold, I got a summons at the end of winter to appear in court. And let me tell you, it is a lengthy process, and most of it's waiting. So you're sitting there with about a couple hundred people. You have to show up, you have to listen to a video talking about why jury service is important. And maybe if 1/5 of the room was actually listening, that would probably be a success. But it's you sit in the court and you get screened. And imagine, if you would, like a bingo drum calling numbers. So instead, it's filled with slips of paper. So people are identified by their jury number, their profession, and where they live. And you get called out one by one. If the trial is a civil matter, the lawyers can look at you for whatever reason and say, we challenge that juror, we don't want you to sit. In criminal, it's a bit different. And you have to, you go through the same process of randomly being drawn, and then you have to fill out a questionnaire. And you're asked about, your views, your past experience, and can you set aside biases that apply to various different things. So there were about 60 people left for this criminal trial I ultimately was selected on, and I was in the first group of 20, near the bottom. Wow. And I thought, okay, they aren't going to pick me. There are so many people ahead of me. Well, I was number 17, and only 2 out of the 16 people ahead of me were sworn in on the jury. Oh, wow. That just tells you how many discharges happen. So you go in, you have to swear or affirm before the court. Everyone's there watching. So the accused, the Crown, the judge. And
how are you feeling as this process is playing out, by the way?
It's very nerve-wracking, to be honest. Like, it's just, you're sitting up there in the witness box and everyone's looking at you, and the judge will address you one-on-one. And then they ask you to leave the courtroom. I don't know what they say, but they obviously had some sort of discussion. Yeah. They asked about my experience as a journalist. Do I regularly cover courts? Which I don't. I only do it on part-time. And then, lo and behold, to come back in, and they say, okay, you're ready to swear and affirm, and you're put on jury. Then you go sit in a room that's not accessible to anyone, and you have to wait. You have to wait for all 12 jurors to be sworn in, and it took a while. Yeah. So there's a lot that goes into it that you maybe don't appreciate.
I've seen people, even in some cases, trying to get out of jury duty, but it seems like the judges, they have quite the guidelines there for them to determine whether or not somebody would become a good juror or it's a good fit. Okay, so you get picked. What happens next, and what's the nature of this trial here? I know you can't tell us too much.
Yeah, so by law, as a juror, you can't disclose anything related to deliberations, but because the case I sat on was still recent and still before the courts, I'm not going to get into the particulars. I will say there were multiple charges, and it was a criminal matter. And the challenge with that is you're almost looking at 6 different sets of laws that pertain to each charge. It's not just one thing that sort of guides you. So there's a lot you have to do. When you're in court, it's up to you to take as many or as few notes as you need to help you remember come deliberation time. And you get all the exhibits, and there's a lot of information thrown your way. And look, I don't have any legal training, and neither did any of the other jurors. So if you aren't familiar with the ins and outs, it's quite daunting, to be honest.
And is there like a lot of pressure to make sure that you are making the right decision?
Absolutely. And that was one of the things I really struggled with is, not only do you have victims who are looking for justice, you've got the accused. Their liberty is at stake. Yeah. You don't want to get it wrong. And that weighed so heavily on me throughout this process. And even, in the lead up to this, I tried to read first-person accounts about what it was like.
Yeah.
There's very little information about the process and what jurors face. So when I came back from jury service, I said to my boss, I said, I'd really like to do something on this because there's just such a lack of information out there.
I've always been curious about it too, covering just some of the biggest cases here in Toronto. I never know what happens when the jury leaves that courtroom for deliberations. And I know you can't talk too much about what happens behind closed doors, but can you maybe walk us through a typical day of what things look like for a juror?
Yeah, so you show up every day around, like 9 or 10 or whatever your court time is, you show up. I will say, and I need to give a shout out to the court staff there, they take such good care of you when you're a juror. So when you show up, they'll ask, what do you want to drink, or do you want a snack later on, or something like that. It really is, again, they just go out of their way. So you all get together, you get in your jury room. Before the jury even gets in the room, the lawyers and the judge, they work out procedural things that the jury can't hear. So that all happens beforehand. You're escorted in. Everybody stands up when you come in. So it feels like you're almost like a judge. You're treated that way with the same sense of respect. Mm-hmm. And you have to sit in the same exact seat every day. And you're adjourned around 12:30 for lunch. It's up to you if you want to stay in the building, go out. There's no lunch provided for you.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know that.
No, not until deliberations when you're sequestered. That's when you get, meals, because you can't leave. You're together as a group, and you're cut off from a lot of the modern world.
Right. Because you can still, before deliberations, you could still go home, carry on with your life. But there are certain rules. Are you allowed to tell us, what sort of instructions you're given, when you're sitting in this court case and then you're going home? What sort of guidelines are you provided with?
Yeah, so when you're sitting in the court, obviously it's up to you to pay attention. You've got to study exhibits. You've got to be able to see and hear them, and that's one of the screening questions is. So you've got to pay close attention. When you go home, you're free to go about your life as best as possible in the midst of this extraordinary circumstance, but you can't talk about the case in any way with family, friends. You can't even go online and Google anything related to the law or the case. And let me tell you, as a journalist, that goes against every instinct that I have. And so you really have to try to keep a neutral and impartial view of things. And so every day, I made a conscious effort. I stepped back. I stopped reading news. Because in case there was anything that was even similar to what we were considering. But other than that, it's normal day-to-day life as best as possible outside of deliberations.
And you have this three-part series that's, also including a first-person account, but you also spoke with a judge. Do you want to set up the clip you're about to throw to?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a chance to speak with Justice James Tribopoulos. He's in Brampton. He's a Superior Court judge. And let me just say, it's rare to actually speak with a judge for an interview. Yeah. And he wasn't affiliated with this case in any way, but we were talking about several things. And one of the things that came up, and you'll see in this clip, is a jury and a trial. It's not like what you see on television.
Oh, right.
Trials don't unfold the way, an episode unfolds on Law and Order. They're a lot messier. And getting the evidence before the jury or the judge, if it's a judge-alone trial, is time-consuming. And, not every single question that gets asked is, a highly dramatic moment. In fact, there's a lot of plodding along to get the story out from the witness. And the same is true in cross-examination.
Wow, that's interesting. I really love that you're kind of peeling the curtain back and showing folks what the process looks like, because a lot of us have no idea. Nick, thank you so much. And also Nick's future about his whole process on our website, citynews.ca. Thanks, Nick.